Hello all, welcome to C program. Today we shall have a discussion about the variables, data type and the scanf statement. So when we are executing a C program, we need to store some information. So where that information will be stored? That information will be stored in memory. So we need to instruct the computer to reserve some memory. So in order to give that instruction, we have declaration of variables. Declaration of variables. So here is one such example. So this is a declaration of variable. So it declares that, it instructs the computer that for variable A, a box of memory has to be allocated. A box of memory has to be allocated. And what kind of numbers or what kind of data can be stored in this variable? Only integer numbers. Integer numbers. So what are integer numbers? It can be 1, it can be 2, it can be 100, it can be -1, it can be -2, it can be -200, 0, anything. So all of them, all these numbers, they can be stored in this box, okay, because it's an integer. But can we store a real number like 2.3? We cannot store a real number in this box because this is a integer variable. So this is called as declaration, okay, declaration of a variable. So A is the variable name and integer is the data type. Integer is the data type. So what does the data type indicate? Data type indicates what size box should be allocated, what size box of memory should be allocated, and this variable name indicates the name of that box. So here I have written only one data type, integer, but there are two more famous data types. One is float and the other one is character. Okay, so when we use these variables for float, whenever we declare a variable, let us assume B, so a box will be allocated to B. Similarly, if I say character C, a box will be allocated to C. So here a box has been allocated to A, here a box has been allocated to B, here a box has been allocated to C. So here we can store only integer numbers, we cannot store real numbers. Similarly, we cannot store characters. For example, if I want to store a character C here, it is not possible. It is not possible. So in case of float, it is used to store real numbers. For example, here what I can store? I can store 2.0, I can store 2.3. So all the real numbers can be stored in floating type of variable. Next, can we store character here? For example, D or A? No, characters cannot be stored. Similarly, here we have a third data type, character, and I have declared a variable C. So a box has been allocated and the name of this box is C. So what can be stored here? I cannot store integer like 2. I cannot store it. I cannot store a real number like 3.5. Then what can be stored here? In this box, we can store only character. For example, C or D. Such kind of characters can be stored. So in C programming, a data type, if it is integer, one size box will be allocated. If it is float, then the size of the box allocated will be different. And if it is character, then the size of the box allocated will be different. We cannot store a real value in integer. We cannot store a character in float, and so on. So first we shall execute this program, and then we shall understand how the scanf works. Okay, how the scanf works and how they are related to variables. Okay, variables. Okay, now see here, look at this output. So it is not yet complete, it's partial. So here we shall try to trace this program. Here we have variable A. So what kind of variable? Integer variable. So a box of memory will be allocated to A. At the same time, while allocating the memory to A, the computer or inside the computer operating system, what it will do? It will keep a reference, means whatever the box has been allocated to A, so it will keep track of it. Computer will keep track of it. So it will keep the track in terms of address. So let us assume the address of A is somewhere 2000. Okay, So computer, what it has done, it has allocated a memory block starting from address 2000. Okay, so it has a very large memory computer. So starting from address 2000, it has allocated a what memory to block A. Okay, block A. If you are getting confused, for time being, just ignore it. If you are getting confused, for time being, just ignore it. It's not important. Okay. Now next, what happens? Printf, enter an integer. Enter an integer. So this message has been displayed here. And if you look here, this backslash n is not displayed. So as we know, backslash n, it's a new line character. So whatever the next entry you want to do, it will happen in the next line. Next, first time we are encountering this scanf. Scanf %d %a. So what is this? It is an input statement. It says that take some input from the keyboard and store it in a variable. Take some input from the keyboard and store it in a variable. Okay. So how will I take the input? So this %d will act as input. This %d will act as input. So whatever I will enter here, let us assume I will enter 10. I'll type 10 and I'll hit the enter key. So here it will read it. This scanf statement, what it will do? It will read it from the keyboard. After reading it, where it will store? It will store in the address of A. Okay, so this ampersand. So this ampersand is called as address of A. What is address of A? 2000. Because computer does not know what is A. Computer only know the address of A. Okay. So here computer will come and it will store what? Value of 10 here. Value of 10. So what does the scanf do? It reads an integer from the keyboard and stores it in the variable A. Variable A. Next, after that, what happens? I'll complete the execution. Let us assume I'll enter number 10. Now look at the output. The entered integer is. So when I execute this statement, what happens? So we have a box corresponding to A. So when I enter 10 here, that 10 will be read from the keyboard and stored in the address of A. So address of A means here 10 will be stored. 10 will be stored. After that, what we have? Entered integer is. So next the message will be displayed. Entered integer is. So why we have used this statement? We want to verify whether the entered number has been stored properly or not. So I'll use the printf statement. Printf %da. So printf, what it will do, as we know, whatever is there between the double quotes, it will display as it is, except few exceptions. So here the exception is %d. So %d will not be displayed as it is, rather it will be replaced by the content of A. So what is the content of A? 10. So that is why if you look here, it is producing an output of 10. Producing an output of 10. Okay. So this was with respect to integer. This was with respect to integer. Similarly, what we can do, we can store floating type of values here. But for that, we need to make a modification in the program. So slightly I will modify the program and try to store a floating number. So what I will do, I will make it as float. Next, I'll say enter an real number. Next, look at the changes that I am supposed to make. When I am reading an integer, it should be %d, but when I am reading an float, it should be %f. So I'll make the changes, %f. Okay. Next, entered number is. So here also, what changes I have to make? Rather than %d, I have to write it as %f. %f. So now what I will do, I will execute this program once again. After incorporating these changes. Okay. Enter a real number. So now what I will do? 23.4. See here. Look at the output. So here 23.4 is stored in a box A. So now what kind of box it is? It is not an integer box, it is a floating box. So what will be stored when I execute this statement? When I execute this statement, real number will be read from the keyboard, and where it will be stored? In the address of A. So here 23.4 will be stored. So in the next statement, entered number is, this statement will be displayed. After that, whatever the content of A is there, that will be displayed, and this is what the output that we are saying. Okay, this is the output that we are saying. Similarly, what we can do, we can change it to what? Character C. Okay, character C. Now what we'll do, we'll incorporate all these changes and include in one single program an integer and real number as well as the a character as well. Okay, so we shall execute that program. What I will do, okay. So see here in this program, next program. So I have taken three variables: integer a, float b, character c. Okay, character c. So I have executed the program. First, it is saying enter the integer. Enter an integer. I will say I will enter an integer called as 10. Next, enter a real number. I will say 12.5. Next, enter a character. So here there is small 10, 12.5 G. Okay, so this is the output that we are seeing here. Okay, so how does it work? For A, memory will be allocated. For B, memory will be allocated. For C, memory will be allocated because of these statements. Because of these statements. Next, printf enter an integer. When I say enter an integer, I will enter 10. So where this 10 will be stored? This 10 will be stored in A. Next, enter a real number. When I enter 12.5, where this 12.5 will be stored because of this statement. So here 12.5 will be stored. Next, when I execute this C, when I execute this enter a character, so I will enter G. So where this G will be stored? It will be read and it will be stored in C. Here G will be stored. If you look here, in case of integer we have used %d, in case of real number we have used %f, in case of character we need to use %c. So a character will be read from the keyboard and it will be stored in G. So in box A we have 10, in box B we have 12.5, and in box C we have G. Okay, we have G. So next, whether the information has been entered correctly or not, in order to verify it, is here entered integer is. So the program we have here next. So what it will do? Entered integer is. So in box A, as we know, in box A already 10 is stored. In box B, 12.5 is stored. In box C, G is stored. So in order to verify it, entered integer is. So this message will be displayed here. Entered integer is. So after that, %d, printf %d. So this %d will be replaced by content of A. Content of A is 10. That is why we have here 10 displayed. Next, entered real number is. This statement got displayed here. Next, %f should be replaced by content of B. So while displaying, %d will be replaced by content of B. What is content of B? 12.5. 12.5. Next, similarly here, entered character is. So entered character is has been displayed. Next, instead of %c, what will be displayed here? Content of C. What is content of C? G. So G has been displayed. G has been displayed. So in this video, what we saw about what is a data type. We saw three different types of data type: integer, float, and character. We also saw the functioning of Scanf, and we also verified whether the input that has been read with the help of Scanf statement, it is being stored properly or not. Okay. In the subsequent videos, we will be discussing about the other concepts of C. For all the further updates, subscribe to our channel. Thank you.